Hi there. Welcome to this final installment in our short class on time management for pastors, effectively managing the ultimate resource. I'm so glad you've made it this far. I hope and pray that it's been effective at making you more effective as a pastor, a ministry leader, a missionary, whatever it is. This is the culmination. And in fact, it's a very short lesson today that hopefully will give you more than enough time to reflect on what you've learned, what's been effective, what maybe was not as effective for you, and be able to put it into practice. So just go one more time through the courses that the topics rather that you've covered in this course. We talked about a weekly planner, and again, can't encourage you enough. Find a weekly planner option, whether that's on a electronic planner app or a specific electronic planner, some sort of creative option using a notebook or a planner that's already been set out for you. So think about that weekly planner and think about your time. Think about how you're spending your time. Your weekly assessment is your week in review, taking time each week to think about what was successful, what was unsuccessful, what worked, what didn't work. Really just spend some time in self-reflection so that you don't just fall into the trap of doing the same silly things over and over again without results. We talked about learning and establishing your priorities and letting your priorities dictate the things you do, not the other way around. So deciding your yes, or deciding on your yes so that you can then say no to the things that aren't a part of your yes. Next, investing in your leadership. So investing in those people around you whom the Lord has gifted and raised up to be leaders and to serve Christ alongside you. So definitely get on that. Delegation, the pivot point of success, delegating tasks that can be delegated and empowering your body, your church family to do the things that need to be done to glorify the Lord. We talked about the tyranny of the urgent and differentiating between elephants and ants and urgency and non-urgency and how to deal with charging elephants versus walking elephants, charging ants versus walking ants. We talked about how to balance the people needs or apparent people needs versus apparent tasks that need to be done, and how to find a sense of balance within that and not letting one rob the other, because both are important. The importance of self-time, taking care of yourself and seeing after your devotional time, your family time, your exercise time, all those things are important in making you an effective pastor or missionary or minister. We talked about the Christian habit tracker and challenged you to spend a week challenging yourself to keep track of your Bible reading and what your prayer habits and your giving habits and all those Christian habits, your scripture memory, all those good things, church attendance, just to get a clear and correct view of ourselves from an objective standpoint. And finally, focus. Today is what steals your time. And that gets into one of the big challenges, right, is that we oftentimes, because of human nature perhaps, and sin perhaps, but also because of the nature of our flash, look at me, a million billion different words, it can be difficult for us to focus anymore. And focus really is an absolute superpower. If you can sit down and focus without getting distracted, then you can get a lot of things done in relatively short amounts of time, because you're not just being pulled this way and that, but able to, establish a set focus and begin to work through a task meaningfully, step by step, rather than simply like running around and, putting a few grains of sand in this bucket, a few grains of sand in this bucket, and a few grains of sand in that bucket, and put all the sand in one bucket, make sure that task gets done or that interpersonal issue gets done, and not just flitting about in absolute dissipation in this regard. So that's what today's this final session's about, is simply and clearly addressing the thieves. And thieves are some thing that we're well familiar with, we know a lot about. But the idea here is these time thieves, these things that will come up and just steal your time away from yourself. This could be individual people, this could be individual actions or things that you do or allow in your world that keep you from being as productive as you could be in the positive sense, not in the worship of productivity, but recognizing that there are certain things and habits that you can limit or eliminate and be more effective. So starting with this big distractions that you're going to try to identify and eliminate. The big one's going to be your cell phone, right? The cell phone is always going to have a distracting potential, whether it's active, it's flashing, it's blinking, it's ringing, it's buzzing, whatever that is. It keeps us from engaging with what we're doing at the moment, right? We have to check, we have to know what's someone trying to get, what do they need to say, what do they need to do, and on and on and on. Oh, it's unnecessary. So the cell phone, learning to manage that as a distraction could be, again, getting alternate technology, getting a flip phone or something like that won't do as much, or learning to silence all notifications, or when to put it in do not disturb mode. So many options there for managing that distraction, but the hardest one to manage is your own brain. As you come up in a task to that point where you need to bear down and push through, it's so easy to just reach over and pick it up and stare at it, right? Google something, look at something, right? It's as if our mind is trying to escape from the task or the hard work that's before us, and you don't want to do that. So figuring out a system wherein maybe you set it across the room, or you set it over on a different table, or you put it out of or maybe you just put it face down so you can't see when it's lit up, right? Those are all ways to kind of combat the excessive cell phone distraction. Also found this has not historically been the case, but now pretty much any computer you have is going to jump in with notifications of every kind. You're going to notify you that you got an email. We're going to notify you that the system scan hasn't happened yet. You're going to notify you and all those things, generally, you can turn off. So turn them off, right? You will know when you need to check your email. You can check it whenever you want. If you're allowing, as you're doing sermon prep, or you're in counseling, or talk, whatever, you're in a Zoom call with some class that you're taking or giving, and you're constantly having your distraction pulled, or your attention pulled apart, you're just not doing yourself any favors at a minimum, right? It's unhealthy, and it's not conducive to good constructive work habits. So shut those things down. Yeah, you can tell Microsoft to be quiet, right? Or Apple, or whoever it is. You can just shut them down. So another distraction to eliminate is bored or lonely people. It's fine if you really were kicking your feet up and someone calls up and says, "Hey, what you doing? Let's go hang out, or let's talk." Wonderful. But if you're not doing that, and you've got someone who is just incapable of having healthy relationships, and they're calling and interrupting and texting, whatever it is, you need to figure out how to monitor or manage that, right? Maybe you silence that conversation so you only see their texts when you actually physically look for them. Again, maybe it's setting expectations for them, letting them know, hey, I work between these hours, or this isn't a good time to call me, or whatever it is, or just not taking the call with that do not disturb kind of function. But there are definitely going to be people and relationships in life that are going to challenge you and try to take more than you have, and the important relationships will wait, right? So recognizing that, again, the bored and the lonely who just want to show up and talk for an hour, or just want to show up and talk for 3 hours because they've got nothing else to do, you can't give that any quarter, right? They need to find someone else who's bored and lonely, or figure out a constructive way to fill their time. But they're not your responsibility. So the first thing, eliminate those distractions: cell phones, excessive notifications on your computer, bored and lonely people, whatever it is that you find that, kind of is your squirrel moment, like, squirrel, what's that? Deal with that. Get rid of it. Don't rely on your self-control to do that. I mean, don't get me wrong, self-control is a fruit of the Spirit, but there's also just unnecessary testing of that self-control. So rather than, rely upon your ability to ignore the sound of the buzz of your cell phone or the ring of your cell phone, turn it off or shut it down so that you can be there. Now, other distractions, other little foxes that'll take your time, are meaningless tasks. I don't know if you may or may not have read The Phantom Tollbooth, a wonderful children's book in which all of these allegorical creatures meet Milo, and he learns to love learning, basically. But he encounters at one critical point in his mission, the terrible Trivium. And this is a man in a suit with a bowler cap with no face. And all he wants to do is convince Milo that he needs to count all of the beads in a bead drawer, and move all of the paper clips from one container to another, and count all the grains of sand in this cup, and there are so many trivial tasks that maybe carry some sense of accomplishment, and you might get a hobby that has some trivium kind of to it in that regard. But at least I've found in my pastoral ministry, it's easy to get caught up in now's the time, I'm going to move all of these resources from this closet to that closet. Does it need to be in that closet? I don't know. I just want to do something, right? I don't want to do anything that I have to think about or whatever it is. So identifying tasks that are just totally meaningless, but you kind of do them anyway for whatever reason it is that you do them, right? Those different things, sharpening pencils or, ordering pens, whatever it is that makes you, realize that someone else should be doing this, perhaps, or that really no one needs to do this. Those meaningless tasks can rob you of so much. And you need to figure out a way, right, to identify, like, oh, wow, I'm using time I don't have on something that's not important. Next, social media. Yes, social media equals wasted time. Lots of time on social media equals wasted life. I know there's plenty of people who fancy that they have some kind of ministry on social media. I would encourage you to think of your ministry as what happens in real life. I'm not saying that nothing positive can happen on social media, but I'd say that it's characteristically designed not to be productive. It is not a productive way to move information between people. It is not a productive way to change people's mind. It is not a productive way to get information to people, because it is just mind-numbing, soul-sucking, hateful loss of life. It's not edifying, it's not encouraging, it's not enriching, it's not equipping, it's not restful. Ultimately, it brings no pleasure. It might have some purpose, but if so, use it for that purpose. Don't get caught in the endless doom scrolling or the YouTube hole or the TikTok swipe fest until finally you've given away hours of your life that you would far rather have spent doing something edifying, like sleeping, like breathing. Anything that you did would probably be more productive than what you did on social media. So I encourage you, because of various factors, to completely abandon your delusion that you enjoy social media. It can be a platform to, spread the news or share information about an event or a thing that's going on. There's all sorts of things that you can do, with the technology. But one thing it will not do is give you life and be motivating and productive. You're probably watching this on some level of social media, so obviously there can be some use, but the threats of it are far greater than the rewards in most cases. So my encouragement to you, when it comes to things that little foxes that steal your time, that break your focus, if you need to take Facebook off your phone, or if you need to take YouTube off your phone, or whatever it is, remove from yourself those distractions that are just chipping away at the meaningful time. And then if you have a actual purpose, you want to see pictures of the grandkids or whatever it is, then set a time for that and only spend 15 minutes on that. I'm going on here to see pictures of my grandkids or to catch up with so-and-so. And the minute this scrolling goes past the people I care about or the thing that I'm trying to accomplish, shut it down. It does not bring joy. It does not edify. It does not lift up, unless you're using it for exactly those purposes. And again, even then, I think it's a bit questionable, because if you were able to spend that time, if we were able to spend this time just talking about this in person, how much more edifying and encouraging would that be for both of us? Much more, right? So we use it for what we can or what we have to, but don't let yourself get sucked into it. So there are plenty of tools out there for controlling the social media black hole. Again, you can get apps, external apps that will help block or limit your screen time, and just the discipline of removing whatever it is that makes it easy to click on that, removing that. Maybe it's just taking it off of your home page or your home screen. But social media will suck your soul dry, and it gives nothing in return. So I entirely encourage you, Pastor, and it also gives the false sense that you've ministered to someone. When you have real people in your congregation to minister to, that there's an actual human being out there that you can make eye contact with and talk to and pray with and care about, and instead you're commenting on other people's posts. Come on, don't do that. It's a distraction. I realize that I'm on a soapbox here, and I understand we'll all be indifferent, especially if you're younger than me. You'll probably have a different attitude about this, but I do want to encourage you to think clearly about that. So this is our very final short lesson to finish off this time management discussion. Find out, diagnose, what is it that breaks your focus? Put a sheet of paper next to your workplace or wherever you're needing some focus. Put a sheet of paper next to that and do two things with it. One, when something comes up that distracts you, maybe it's an obligation, something you don't want to forget, write it down, get right back to business, right? Whether that's your quiet time or sermon prep or whatever. Just write it down, let it go. You'll look at it when you're done. Forget about it entirely. And then when you notice yourself grabbing for whatever it is, your phone, you think, I was going to check YouTube. Okay, checking YouTube is a distraction. Or I was going to check and see if I got any calls, or I was going to go over and check my email because my brain was tired of focusing on this. Instead of pushing through, I just went to that. So go find the things, right? Is it that you pick up a comic book, whatever it is, figure out those things that break your focus and bring you distraction, and figure out a way to set those aside so that when you work, you really work. And then when you go to play or entertain yourself, you can really play, right? And you're not living that kind of hybrid life of confusion between the two. So your assignment is, what is most likely to interrupt your focus? By busy work, phone, entertainment, or people? Can you increase your ability to focus and increase your effectiveness in pursuing the things that are important in life and ministry? And the answer to that question is, of course, yes, but the real question is how, right? You can absolutely do it. You just have to ask how. Well, again, thank you for taking part in this course. I really hope that it was edifying. Please do leave or give us feedback on what was helpful and what was maybe less helpful. We look forward to looking at your assignments as you go forward, and hopefully, again, see more ministers effectively working to utilize the time that God has given them to bring Him glory. May God richly bless you, and we hope to see you soon.